Hello everybody, time for an update on what I'm doing with the Grand Classic. So hopefully by now you all realise that the circuit is done. I'm very, very happy with the overall design of it, and if any of you made it to the guitar show at the Northwest here, you will have had a chance to try this beautiful bad boy out, which is the big box version made with love. And this is exactly the same in terms of circuit as the final version will be, but obviously massive, just hand soldered. I had a lot of great feedback of some really cool people who tried it out. In fact, I had nothing but great feedback about it. Some people loved it. One person even bought the last pre-order. So you're all out of luck, there's no more pre-orders available. If you're coming to the Manchester Guitar Show or the Brighton Guitar Show or any of the others this year, you'll have a chance to try out for yourself and play it. So, what am I actually doing right now? If the circuit is done, why isn't it in your hands? Because, what a tough and awkward world. The first thing I'm having to do is refine some of the precise selection of parts. I'm trying to manage the purchasing of those parts. There's a lot going on. So, the very first thing I've done is this exciting thing here, which is my spreadsheets. I've had one like this for a long time for the hot boxes, but I've never had one for the pedals before, but we're now getting very complicated. So how this works is I have done a stock take of all the bits I've already bought, because obviously I've spent all the money you gave me and more. I spent several £1,000s more than I've taken, because that's life. But it's fine, it's an investment, that's my problem, not yours. You're still getting your goods. And so, for example, if we look at this list, let me scroll up, here we go, we can see header pins. You might be able to difficulty reading it on your screen. Header pins with a typo. And I've got 200 of those, 100 of those, push switches, we've got the Alps push toggles, those are the ones on the front. I've got 175 of them in stock. Micro slide switch for the inside, 300 of them, and so on and so forth. And the great thing about this, because I've only started creating it, so the Grand Classic's the only one I'm filling in, is I can fill in how many parts each pedal needs, and then I can type in here at the top how many I'm making. So I've typed 50 in, and if I scroll this a little bit sideways so we can see this, because there we go, we can see how many are in stock, how many I need to make the quantity I've typed in, and how many I'm going to have left afterwards. The green are all good, so clearly we need 2 of this header pin per unit. I've got 200 in, I want to make 50, so I need 100, I'm going to have 100 left. But if we get down to the momentary tactile switch, so that's for the foot switch, I've only actually got 46 of them in stock because I've been using them up on prototypes. And so I'm 4 short, not a problem, we'll order those. Or standoffs, I'm 50 short because I wasn't sure which length I was going to go with, and I think I'm going to go with 18 because having it's a typical sort of fine-tuning issue with the cases. The edges aren't exactly square, they're a little bit in like this, they're a little bit tilted in, so when the circuit board gets put in, it kind of goes at a slight angle, so it's not as flat as I thought. It's going to be a slight angle, so as you can imagine, the standoff for the foot switch here is a little bit further away, and I knew that was going to happen. I wasn't sure what it'd be till I tried it. I bought loads of 16s in the wrong size, so 17s or 18s, for example. So this is really cool. Like here you can see I've got 177 orange knobs. Again, I've been using them. I need 250, so I'd better order another 100, get that in, and so on and so forth. So this is pretty cool. So I've been spending a lot of time doing this, adding all the parts, and that's what I've been up to mainly. The next thing I've been up to is specific part selection, because some of this stuff on here I'm set in stone. I've learned with the push switches that I really like those ones. I'm going to use them. I know which knobs I'm using. I know about the alpha pots. I modify them my own way. But some of the parts I'm not as sure on. And one of these parts is kill it with fire. I hate this thing. Okay, these are in every pedal. This is the standard. I don't understand why this is the standard. It's the worst thing about guitar pedals. It's the absolute worst. It's the pits. Look at this thing. First of all, this metal bit on the edge, it's flimsy. They're really flimsy. They go in the circuit board and they're very thin metal, and it's not well anchored. There's no way to anchor it to the panel. Look at this front. It's just rectangular, squarish bit of plastic. There's no screw, there's no slot, there's nothing going on there. I don't even understand why this exists. Okay, so, and yet this is what everything uses. They're a couple of pence each. And the worst thing about these, I haven't got a picture for this, let me see if I can find a picture for it, close this one, scroll this one down, I'm sure I will, is the back of them. Okay, oh here we go, perfect, view image. This sort of, this isn't the exact one I use actually, but on the back, this little bit here is awful. It's a riveted section usually. Here we go, this is a bit better. There we go. They're never that clean, they're never that nice. Okay, you have to test every one of these when you get them and give them a pull, and sometimes they just fall apart and you throw it in the bin. It's a huge amount of wastage, and even if you test them all, you're never 100% sure how they're going to survive, because look, there's nothing anchoring the bottom to the board apart from these thin tangs, and you can see how thin they are on this one. It really shows. This is, and honestly, they're even these pictures are always the most perfect pictures. When you get them, they're dreadful things. And so surely there's a better alternative than this thing, because you can't fit a square non-screw fit anything to a chassis easily. It's just going to fall apart. So these are commonly used. These are much better made, but they're a pain in the neck as well. So they're not just round, they've got flatted sides. So ideally you need them milled with a CNC, otherwise they're going to rotate. That hex nut is thin stamped steel, and I've used these where they just wreck the threads and then they come loose after a while, so you have to glue them as well, and they're difficult to fit, and obviously they don't fit on circuit boards, so we've got trailing wires, and the one cost you can't manage in a project is time. Okay, so I could always look for alternate components, I can all sort of things out, but if something takes 15 minutes to fit, it's going to add to the price. And this is one of the reasons why boutique pedals are always so dear. Time. I mean, half of my MO has always been to try and provide boutique pedals at a reasonable price. I don't want you paying 400 quid for a pedal just because it takes me 3 days to make one. I want to be reasonably able to bang these things out at a very high quality, but not wasting time on things like tiny trailing wires. If I have to fit these in my chassis, by the time I include all the time of cutting, stripping, tinning wires, fitting them to the circuit board, the fact that you can't remove this thing without cutting the wires from the board, so you have to put it in, then the wires, then the board, then solder the wires in situ so the board can't be finalised before it's in. Yeah, so that's going to be 15 minutes of pedal, and really that's going to add quite a lot, because you're only paying yourself a percentage of the time. Let's say I pay myself 10%, which is actually around what I tend to do. 20 at the outside if someone's working, let's say 20%. So if I want to be paid the minimum wage of £10 an hour at 20%, then I need to be turning over £50 an hour worth of stock in production. So if it takes me £50 an hour, so if it takes me 15 minutes to fit this, that's a quarter of that. So if that takes me 15 minutes to fit, I have to charge you £12.50 for it. Yeah, that's you heard that right. So I don't want that to take 15 minutes to fit, because I am not charging you £12.50 to fit a jack, which is realistically what I'd have to do to earn minimum wage. So that's a no-go. So this thing's dreadful, we hate it, but at least you don't have to be charged for it. This thing's £12.50, what else is there? These, oh, aren't these beautiful? They're a couple of quid a piece, but you know what? We can't use them either. This solves all the problems. Circuit board, split second to solder, the machines can solder it, pop it through the hole and screw it in. But we can't use it because, for some unknown reason, the gods of pedals decided that, unlike everyone else, they were going to have centre negative and outside positive, which would be a short circuit because your chassis, your metal chassis, has to be earthed for screening. So your chassis to be earthed, so if we screw that, that has to be centre positive, which is the wrong way round, and everyone's going to go, why is your jack socket the wrong way around? So these, even though they are a perfect solution by Switchcraft, can't be used. So, I mean, I spend a lot of time doing this, so this is what I've been doing. I'm going to try these. They are all the problems of the first one, but these are a Switchcraft jack, and they've got nice chunky bits of metal on the pins, and the plastic is a sort of reinforced plastic, not a cheap plastic, and I'm just hopeful that the quality of the materials is higher. These are 5 times the price. They're £1.20 each or something instead of 10 pence. That's 12 times the price. But I'm not charging you £12.50 to fit them. I'm charging you a split couple of pence for the seconds to solder 3 joints. So I think that's what we have to try. So yeah, I mean, this is the sort of thing I'm up against. We're all up against this pedal manufacturers, and honestly what most of us just do is fit this and hope. And if we get the odd return on it, we just apologise deeply. But deep down in our souls, we know we're doing something incredibly wrong. We just don't have a good solution. You know? So we'll do our best, and hopefully this will be a great solution. It's a lot more money again though. £1.50 each. If I'm making 50 of these, I've got to find 75 quid just for DC jack sockets. You know, and this is why we've gone massively over budget. Really, all you guys are getting incredible bargains at this point. But as I said, I don't mind. You've helped me make it. Moving on. Okay, so spreadsheets done, things done. Circuit boards. This is the next thing. This is part of what I'm working on. The board is done, but pinouts, layouts, pad positions. So here we have, let me zoom in. It's very hard for you guys to see all this because you're not used to looking at it, so I'll zoom in. This purple square is the outline for that switchcraft DC socket, which I have to create, and this takes time. So if we open package on this thing, oh, you can't see it, it's not programmed to see it, that's annoying. But yeah, look, it looks the same. Basically, set power, we're deciding the exact dimensions of all the different bits. We get the data sheets up. Let's see if I can get that data sheet up. There we go. So we get the switchcraft data sheet up on. These are really good, and they show us the exact dimensions and little details again, like we can choose to do. We've got the alternate layout of drilling 3 holes at the bottom, or if we're more advanced, we can slot them, which is the recommended way for more structural integrity. Of course, I'll do that. It's a little more difficult, but PCB manufacturers do it, and they give us the exact dimensions. So I have to copy all these dimensions in to the footprint file, and then once the footprint file are all programmed in, then I can use the part on my board. Other things I have to do on the board include adjusting pad sizes. Again, footprints aren't always right. Some of these are mine, some of them are imported. And if we look at this one here, the sort of squarish one with the yellow circle in the middle, next to the C are capacitors. That's a switch. You notice that the pads on the capacitors are chunkier and they're a bit thin on the switch, and that's because I think the switch pads need to be increased slightly, because there's so many factors here. It's not just about drilling a hole for your pins. The hole itself, if it's a little bit too small, the solder won't flow in and you get risk of dry joints and weakness. If it's too big, there's too much solder, and solder is a really bad thing for holding things in place, so too much will get brittle and break. So you've got this very narrow window. The hole has to be a certain size, the pad outer a certain size, too big, and it needs too much to heat up, so the pad never gets hot enough, the solder doesn't bond to it properly. Too small, not enough area, solder doesn't bond to it properly, so we're always trying to work this out. So there's a lot of detail going on here right now at the moment. In terms of me sort of tweaking all this stuff and getting it just right, and of course the tracks as well. Some of the tracks, I'm zooming in, these curved ones, I've had these in place since day one, where I worked out the initial position for the expression socket here, top right expression socket, curved blue tracks coming down to the expression connector in the middle, which is the 6 in a rectangle green dots. And some of the tracks are more recent and are not optimized, like if I zoom in, all these red ones here are very square, there's no curves, these are a bit too close, this is a bit too here, so they're sort of right but need tweaking and cleaning, you know, but mostly it's in place, so we're making very good progress. I've got 90% of the parts in stock, and I'm just working out which parts I need yet on my spreadsheet. I'm making sure I've got the right parts, going through the parts suppliers, seeing what my options are, trying to make good decisions. I'm getting all of that together into footprints. The footprints then work into my board layout, make sure the size of the pins, the holes and the pads are right. Oh, I have to do every part, by the way, even, so let's zoom in there, let's get in here. So these things are C13, R14 and IC2. So these are all surface mount, the red ones are surface mount. The yellow bit is where the part actually fits. The red is the area that can be soldered to. And what happens with these is if the pads are a little bit too large, then the part will just wobble around. You can get bridging, you can get shorts if things are too close together, the solder doesn't flow right. If they're a little bit too small, you get a different issue with them. The part doesn't sit, and if anything's wrong, you can get tombstoning, which is a horrible thing where tiny surface mount parts go blunk and stand up on one end. It's just a nightmare. It happens. Again, pad size is critical for that. Or you can get bridging, where if the pads are too close together, the solder goes blue and it travels across and shorts two things out. So all of these pads are not universal. You can't just say this is a chip. So every single one of these has to be checked against the manufacturer's data sheet for that exact part, for that exact type of resistor from that exact manufacturing game, and check that I am working within their exact specifications. Otherwise, all that's going to happen is I'll pass these through these machines that are supposed to save you time, and save me time and save you money, and everything's going to go ping, 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 and I'm going to have to hand solder it all, which is basically the whole thing's pointless. So yeah, lots and lots of time at the moment between those tasks. And yeah, see you all soon.